Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Time for an update on these markets. I was going to drop a video and I thought, you know what? I really enjoy doing these live streams. So let's just do a quick live stream, take a look at the charts real time with you guys as I do my weekly update here today. The market is on fire. The altcoins are coming back to life in force. Good to see this action. We've been looking at this. And as expected, and we'll go into the deep dive on some of these charts, but as expected, the alts bottomed out before Bitcoin has topped, and we have seen some great, very strong bullish rallies off the lows, massive bounces. Can't complain. I was in maybe a day too early, but it has worked out very nicely so far. So I'll go over some of those charts. And we'll look at some of the other names that are potentially setting up to play some catch up here as well. So thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate you guys as always. There's been some really good moves here today. And I was about to go live and I started watching Stellar and I said, you know what? I posted an update on the Slack groups and I'm going to take some profits here because it basically is hitting my target and some. So why not? So I cycled back into BTC, and that's really the name of the game for me right now. I was trading these alts, as I mentioned, over the weekend, bouncing them into Bitcoin and then just cycling back into BTC. And so there's been some good moves. But looking at Bitcoin here right now, it looks like it wants to break out again. Here it is testing this $8,300 level once again, looking like it's pausing, consolidating here. The moving averages just continue to go higher. This is the 4-hour view, by the way, on Coinbase. And, one could argue that, hey, there's a little bit of a bearish divergence starting to show up, but with the price kind of sitting tight, breakout could certainly negate that here very quickly. And I mean, just surprising rally that has been underway. Finally, crypto is like really starting to cause a frenzy again in the overall market. You just look at CNBC and MSNBC and Yahoo Finance and all these places are just, they're all talking crypto now and Bitcoin. And I was mentioning, earlier that, I'm a part of different groups here and online chat groups and rooms and stuff that I look at. Is, I do a lot of day trading in stocks throughout the day. And it's funny because one of the Discord channels I'm in, there is a crypto discussion group there, but it's pretty much been dead for months. Up until the last 3 days, all of a sudden I went on there just to go check it out, and it was just like all the talk. And you go to the main channel, and it's just all, what about Bitcoin? And how do we get started about, how do we start looking at Bitcoin? And where do I buy some? And any tips on trading Bitcoin? And all of a sudden, like all these non-crypto people are like jumping in again. If you're getting that feeling, right? That frenzy again that we've seen here in the past. Just very reminiscent of the 2017 market. And so, hey, I'm not going to complain. It's all good. Maybe we do see 10K here this weekend, like some people are thinking. I'm not going to hold out for that. I'm just taking it one day at a time. But nonetheless, it feels good to be back into bullish mode, to see such a strong bull. And really, I'm more excited about the alts all around. I mean, Bitcoin is doing great. Bitcoin's Bitcoin. No one's going to complain about that. But, I'm really more excited about what's going to happen with some of these alts. And so that's what I'm going to look at here more, and we'll focus on that. So on BTC, real quick, I'm going to just do a quick update here, looking at the price action. Yes, it's gone parabolic. No one's going to argue with that. When the pullback happens, it will likely be swift. Will catch some people off guard. It will likely trap some people that are FOMOing in at the last minute, as it's often the case. But if we look at some last resistance levels, let me clear this here. We're basically right at this prior resistance back here, which is around 8,400. And, if you look at the next levels up here along the ways, 8,400, 8,500, right? All of this little level back into that 9K psychological number is what we're seeing price really starting to approach right now. If it just happens to see a massive spike, if there's some sort of a news announcement or something, and it just continues to spike right through, then the next major wall is basically around 9,700, 9,800, right? And that's this line way up here. And I mean, let's just be honest, like that would just be incredible, amazing even the most bullish crypto bulls would be shocked by such a move, because it's really just been straight up after breaking out of that $5,600 level. And I mean, I thought we were going to see some pause, a little bit of a battle happen here around that 6K level. Nuh-uh, didn't even do it. Just pushed right through 6K, 7K, like if it wasn't even there. It just kind of goes to show you the strength of the bull. A lot of FOMO kicking in now. I'm getting my non-crypto buddies starting to call and say, hey, have you been watching Bitcoin? What's going on here? And this is crazy, and it's up 100% and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, uh-oh, people are starting to notice, but it's all good. So that's what I'm looking at here as far as, you know, the next couple of levels of resistance on the way up. It's anyone's guess. It's just going parabolic at this time. The main thing that I'm watching here is this is a little bit of a warning flag for me. The fact that these moving averages are really starting to fan out pretty big here. And even the moving average, the 10 EMA, which is what I use a lot on the daily chart, is way down here now, right? Prices would have to fall 10, 12% just to catch up to the daily 10 EMA, which was, you know, which is generally, you know, the price tends to ride that. The 22 EMA, which is now way down here at 6,500, is a good 20% pullback. Are we going to see that? No, I'm not necessarily saying that. And generally, when prices correct, you have a combination of both price and time, right? It doesn't necessarily just go straight down. Ideally, it goes down and sideways. That's the best way to do it. Lets these moving averages catch up. Lets some of the technicals cool off, which right now are very elevated. Look at the RSI here on the daily chart is approaching 90 again. The MACD is way up here. On the 4-hour again, we did see a little bit of a bearish divergence. So maybe we get that little bit of a breakout. That it looks like it's going to break out now. I mean, this chart just looks like it's setting up for another breakout. Maybe we get that last push and then the quick reversal, as is often the case, right? I mean, that would be the sign, is if it pushes higher, everybody really gets crazy, kicks in, and then you see a quick reversal on high volume, then I would start to get a little bit more cautious, especially if it breaks below this, you know, 7,800 level. Breaking below that, then that would really start to signify, hey, maybe a near-term top is in place, and we'll get a little bit of more of a correction. Now, if we see a correction from here, and I'll wrap this up and go to the alts here, but if we see a correction from here, right, where do we go from here? So let's go back to the daily chart. A couple of things that I'll use. Obviously, you want to use price support levels. That's the most important thing. And so you look left, where the prior resistance levels that are going to now be support. You know, you've got this guy right here, which is around 7,400. And then, of course, you've got down here, which is basically 6,800. And that would be your kind of your first stopping points. And then the moving averages, of course. But price usually is the most important levels to be looking at. And then if we look at a Fibonacci retracement, and I'm going to start from the entire impulse move that basically started when it broke out over that 4,200 level. And let's assume price topped here, right? I mean, it's anyone's guess where it goes. But let's say it did top right here. Then if we do a retracement on this, look at how this lines up very nicely with some of those levels, right? The 382 level lines up almost perfectly with that 6,800 level support. And generally that 382 level is kind of your first line of defense where you want to see a pullback. That would also line up with some moving averages here. So that's really the strongest level that I'd be looking at for support if it decides to pull back from here. Of course, the first level would be this prior resistance, now support here around 7,400. That would also be the 10 EMA on the daily. And so somewhere in between those two, if it really decided to pull back harder, then 6,200, and then lastly 5,800, right? We don't want to see that far, but I know if you're sitting on the sidelines, you'd love to see 5,800 to scoop some more BTC up before it makes its eventual push back to new all-time highs, because we all know that's happening, right? Maybe not this month, but over the next year, going into the halvening, it's just not out of the realm of possibility at all. So that's kind of my expectation overall. But yeah, Jake, to your point, man, it's about time. That bear was brutal. It was wearing a lot of people out. And it's just really amazing at how quickly the bear turned into a crazy bull market for Bitcoin. Not all the alts, not yet, but just amazing how quickly like Bitcoin just came roaring back once it get going over that 4,200 level. And yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'm a little disappointed because I thought we were going to stay below 6K, 6,200 for a little bit longer. And I was hoping we would have rallied, pulled back, made a little bit of higher low, because I would have liked to accumulate a lot more sub 6K than I was doing. I mean, most of my last buy, unfortunately, was down here in the mid threes, and I haven't really bought any more since then, since it broke out. And I thought we were going to see a little bit more of a pause, a little bit more of a pullback. So just going to have to wait. And really, I'm not too worried, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in the alts to make up for a lot of that. But yeah, it is what it is. I was buying some of the blood here, and I admittedly, we bought a little early at 4,500, and then when it broke into the threes, started buying more at the threes. And then I was going to wait it out, and I thought, okay, this will pop, maybe pull back, and I'll buy some more here at the threes. Never got that chance. It is what it is. But that's okay, because I'm really looking at some of these alts, and I'm thinking there's going to be some good catch-up to be done there. So let's talk alts here. Looking at the BTC Dominance here, right? BTC Dominance spiked here just a couple of days ago, before these alts really got going here, into that 60% zone, which, I mean, this was the highest level that the BTC Dominance had been since back here in October, November of 2017. If you remember that December, that peak in December, that was the run-up to the Bitcoin futures launch. And then, of course, in November, that October-November rally, Bitcoin just dominated. That was really the place to be. And so that was, 62%, 65% BTC dominance. And we came really close to that here in the last couple of days, hitting 60%. Many of the alts, as you guys know, were just getting crushed. Every tick Bitcoin went up, the alts just pulled back further. But really started to sense that it was due for a bounce. I thought that the bounce was going to be fast and furious when it came. So I started to front run a little bit of the alts, which I rarely do. But in this case, I was like, time to buy some blood here. And it paid off. So let's start with some of the names that are bouncing here pretty nicely over the last couple of days. And then we'll certainly take a look at some of your guys' names that you want to look at. Ripple, of course, we know has been one of the big winners. I have booked most of my gains. I sold about 2/3 of that here earlier today. And my approach with this is just cycle back into BTC, wait for the next altcoin setup to break out or get ready to break out, and then move into that. In the case of Ripple, I basically cycled my profits out of Ripple into basic attention. But that was a nice quick, 30% move off of the lows here very quickly. Again, I got in a little bit early. I probably bought, back in here, but, saw a small drawdown before the eventual pop higher. And so nonetheless was still a very strong trade on the Ripple side. Now, how high does it go, right? Most of these were basically bounce trades for me, right? For me, this is kind of the first wave up. I expect there'll be a little bit pause, pullback, and then eventually they'll continue higher. So that's good. Hit my first target, continuing higher. My ultimate target was, up in this 6K BTC pair range, which is still tracking to it, right? It's still moving along nicely. If you look at the 4-hour view, just steady Eddie climbing with some very strong volume. And if we look at the long-term picture of Ripple, notice where the bounce happened. I mean, this was the August, September lows of 2018. That rally fully retraced, and I mean, almost to the penny. The buying pressure showed up there and on very strong volume. And so that was a great place to start looking at there. And sure enough, the volume is confirming that this one did more and to the upside. And off to the races. Here we go, is the 1-hour view on Ripple. You can see that first spike a couple hours later, cleared some resistance, and then has just been making higher highs and higher lows since then. Trending nicely, but I did scale out of that, taking some gains on Ripple. I'll look at it again if it decides to pull back in. Another one was Stellar Lumens. Now, Stellar generally will do a sympathy trade with Ripple. If Ripple starts to see a big rally, Stellar will very often do a similar rally. Now, I got into Ripple and Stellar at the same time, and so obviously Ripple was winning, but today, boy, did Stellar play some catch up here. And just before the live stream, I did close out of this, cycled back into BTC, taking some gains. My initial target to make a 2-1 ratio was basically right here. It ended up being almost a 30% trade. And the last target was basically this resistance right here, which you can see this wick. I mean, went almost to the penny on that last little move that we saw here. And so just before I went live, I started seeing this thing basically go straight up. So I decided, let's take some off the table there and wait for a little bit of a pullback or for some other alts to cycle into. So Stellar Lumens, a very nice trade, very quick too. I mean, it pulled up, hit resistance, just barely started to edge out. I posted an update to the group saying, hey, this is still looking good. It's starting to cross resistance, and then boom, out of nowhere, just takes off. And so very good move on Stellar. You look at the 4-hour view, it's basically been a short-lived rally. I mean, just 3-4 hour candles. So can't complain on Stellar. I hit my first target, so I think it's got more to go on the bounce, but we'll likely see maybe a little bit of a pause, pullback first. I'm generally a sell into strength kind of guy, and so I'll sell into that. Very often I may get out early, but I'll wait for another setup and go from there. Basic attention token, looking at that from the BTC pair first. This is one I'm liking here, has not seen quite the parabolic move that some of these others have yet. And so this one is still setting up here. A little bit of a double bottom forming, a little bit of an Adam and Eve double bottom. If you look at the technicals, the RSI has a strong bullish divergence. Same with the MACD, a little bit of a divergence there, positive divergence. And so the way I'm looking at this is even a run up to the neckline here, which is around that 5,700 level on the BTC pair, you know, from where I got in earlier today, I mean, that's going to be a, you know, even a run to that is 16-17%. If it decides to break out after that, then a measured move from the double bottom surprisingly lines up very well with this resistance level around that 7,000 level. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting a run all the way to that point, but if it did, I mean, that's a 40% trade versus Bitcoin. And so, you know, I'll take that. I'll take those odds all day long with very, you know, some limited downside. I mean, obviously the stop is pretty clear for me. If it starts to lose that most recent swing low, then I'll just get out of the way, because at that point it'll start to look like a, you know, a lower low, lower high type of thing, right? And so if it does one of these and starts to fail, then I'll just get out of the way and wait for a new setup. But right now, BAT's looking pretty good. So I'm liking the way it's setting up. It's worth taking a shot at for me. And so I decided to cash in some of the other gains and cycle it out into some of these other names that are really setting up here. So basic attention, definitely on my radar, you know, and full disclosure, I have a position in it. Cardano, still holding some Cardano, was starting to finally edge out here. Again, another one, a little bit of a double bottom. It cleared some near-term resistance here, really starting to break out. Measured move on this one takes it to around 1,300 on the BTC pair. And so I'm going to see if I can hold out until it gets closer to that point before I book a little gains. Now, price action is always the determining factor. If it really starts to roll over, then, you know, I'll just take the gains and move on. But at this point, it's looking pretty good. Now, it is getting a little bit heated on the RSI, starting to hit that 74, 75 level. Not crazy. I mean, for alts, you know, things don't really start to take off until after 70s. But, you know, if it starts to hit 85, 90 on the RSI, then I may take some off the table at that point and maybe put a trailing stop on the rest or something and let it go. So we'll see how that goes. But Cardano, nice little double bottom showing up here on the BTC pair, looking very strong. Testing a little bit of resistance here just now, starting to edge out over that. So we'll see how high these can go. And, you know, there's a good question that I saw earlier today on the chat group, and people were asking, you know, like, what do I buy now? Things have broken out. Do I just wait for the pullback? You know, what's the strategy or the approach there? And right now, the charts, especially the stronger names, right? I always like to bet on strength. So those names that are moving the strongest, that's generally the way I would approach it, is looking for those pullbacks. And there's two places that I would look at as far as pullbacks go. I mean, it's going to all depend on, you know, the individual strategy and time frame. Some people are only looking at daily charts and they're just kind of taking longer term points of view. Other people are scalping and they're doing 1 hour and 5 minute charts and all that stuff, you know. So I generally will focus in on the 4 hour view. You know, I may zoom in a little bit shorter time frame to kind of take a little bit more precise point of view. But on this chart, for example, I'd be looking at like these moving averages. So like the 10 EMA, if it starts to catch up, maybe you get a little bit of a pullback, a throwback entry or something like that. Then, you know, those little dips are good little secondary opportunities from which to potentially initiate another, an entry point there. So that's what I'd be looking at here. Chasing these long green candles, it's generally higher risk. When the momentum's strong, it works out nicely because it just keeps going, but you just don't want to be the last one to buy in before the pullback. So that's the approach I'd be taking. I'd be looking at some of these pullbacks close to those support levels that broke out, and maybe to the moving averages. That's generally the way I like to do it. And the moving averages, it's not an exact point. It's generally, I look at the moving average pair. So for example, I have two moving averages. When it starts to pull in, even if it undercuts the 10 EMA, but it stays above the 22, right? That little zone in between, when I start to see a reverse from that, that's a good spot to look at it. So that's how I'd be looking at those. Of course, there's different approaches if you're coming in from like the dollar pair. So if you're looking at Cardano USD Tether, right, the breakout was way back here when it broke this downtrend. And look at this, right? This was a good example of that. Broke the downtrend, very strong volume. And then look at where it had this throwback right here to those moving average pairs, like I'm saying. Let me zoom in here for you guys. I know that might be tough to see, but it broke that downtrend on strong volume, started to pause, had a little bit of a shakeout, but look at where it held. I mean, to the moving averages, and then once it started to turn the corner again, that's when I'd be looking to enter. That would have been a great secondary entry point if you were coming in from the USD Tether side. And this one too is also starting to hit my targets. My first target was this line down here around 9 cents, and then the second target now was the prior highs. And so I'm gonna have to keep an eye on this one here. Maybe I'll start booking some of the gains on Cardano and wait for a little bit of a pause, or the alternative would be wait for a breakout. So let's say it does decide to finally blow right through, then I may re-enter if it does a little bit of a throwback to the breakout point and then take it on it. That'd be a whole new trade for me at that point, right? Because my initial trade was way back here. So I'd be looking at taking it on a breakout and then a throwback or something, right? But right now it's coming into view. It's coming into my target. We'll see if how it starts to act here. Again, you look at the RSI on the daily chart here, or the 4-hour view, excuse me, starting to hit 83. So maybe it's getting close, but what a nice little move it's been. And it's been very fast. I mean, some of these moves are just, out of nowhere, very quick. I mean, this is up 50% in basically, what is that, 4 days? 5 days, maybe, if you give it a little bit of extra. I mean, 50% in 4.5 days. Not going to complain about that, right? Oh, man, got to love that. I wish my stocks would do that. But these are the kind of moves we expect out of the crypto space, right? So let's look at ETH, because ETH has been another one that finally has taken out some levels of resistance, finally moving higher. Came right into view here. Let me highlight this. This was a level I was watching and really wanted to break out over on the BTC side. And we're seeing it here now, right? It just started to happen as I went live here. It's been testing this level, pulling back, finally breaking out. This first level of resistance around that 0.028 was the first level I was watching, and then the next target around that 300. And here we are pushing higher. And there's just going to be a series of levels to be watching on the way up, right? The next one is basically that 32 level, 31.9, which it's right at right now. The reason I was liking ETH a little bit more, obviously, we see cycles out of BTC into ETH and some of the big cap names, but on the USD side, this one was looking really nice and really broke out here. So if we look at ETH dollar, right, I mean, it was setting up in this range for quite some time, and looking at, that 180 level, that was a very clear breakout point over 180. That was just kind of the signal. It broke out, pulled right back, gave you a little bit of a throwback again, right to those moving average pairs, and then has just been taking out every target that I was watching on the way up. My first target was 220, hit that. Then my next target was 253, hit that. I'm still holding it, but I'm thinking, here as we're approaching this next little window between 250 to, what is that, 275, that's going to be kind of the next target to see where we go. And then, of course, there's the 300 level, and that's also, kind of a psychological round number, which lines up really nicely with this prior resistance back here. So ETH, man, ETH is on fire, looking strong. Again, a little bit overheated here near term, going parabolic. Would I buy it here, right? If I wasn't in ETH, I probably would not buy it here if it were me personally. I'd be looking for pauses or pullbacks, but I'm just going to trail this one up, see how high it can go before it decides to take me out of the trade. But man, ETH looking really nice. What were the other ones? I'm holding some Neo still. Looking at Neo, how's this one doing here? I haven't looked at it in a couple hours. Nice little breakout on Neo here. So over BTC here, the real level to be watching on Neo, if you didn't want to buy the dip, if you will, was a clear breakout over that 1450 level. Breaking out over that, that's just confirming the reversal. And the nice thing about this was the volume was there to confirm it as it broke out over that level. You could have got in a little bit early if you were using, the power pivots or something like that. And you can see that that was a little bit of a reversal there on the 4-hour with some well above average volume. Started to confirm that maybe this one was ready to get going. And sure enough, confirmed on the way up. So Neo still looking nice. The thing I like about Neo here is if you look at the Neo USD pair, and so many of these alts have a similar pattern, right? Is they were way down here at the lows, right? $8 held, breaking this downtrend, and then just like straight up when it broke the downtrend, right? Now again, just like we saw in Cardano, Neo is starting to approach that first major target, which was the previous swing high before the big pullback, right? So the high that we saw in early April, which was really the top for a lot of alts, was April, and that's really when Bitcoin took off. And now we're seeing those alts find some support and just really rallying back strongly and very quickly, right? As is generally expected. That first move off the lows is usually fast and furious. It's kind of quick, and we're seeing that here. So 1350 Neo back very quickly from $10 to $13 here. A nice little trade here, just like Cardano, making, what is this? Basically 48% here in 4 days. So Neo, again, like many others, on fire. So let me see, above 1350, then I'm looking at $15 is the next target for Neo. Let me zoom out here for you guys. But look at this chart, though. I mean, this is the log off, of course, but look at this chart. And so many of the alts are just like, yeah, they're up 40%, 50%, 100%, but coming off the lows, I mean, these guys they got a long ways to go, And so that's what I'm thinking, right? Longer term, if I start looking 6 months out, a year out, going into the BTC halvening, right? Who knows what Bitcoin will be in a year? Could be new all-time highs. But what would the alts do in that scenario, right? Where's ETH going to be? Where's Neo going to be? Hopefully it's more than $10, right? I mean, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30. I mean, who knows? But I'm looking at that, right, from the bigger picture. I'm going, man, these alts are they got smacked hard. I mean, look at some of the other ones here, right? Let's just really quickly cycle through, right? Look at Quantum USD. Yeah, it's had a very nice move off the lows, but it's still $3, right? I mean, from a high of the 20s, right? So just really paints the picture as far as the crazy moves that we saw. And, granted, it was a bubble and a lot of things were just crazy overvalued. I'm not saying a lot of these are going to get back to the old highs, because many of them won't, as we know. But some of them will. And, even if they don't, even if they go double, triple from here, still not bad. So here's Stellar USD breaking out there. Very nice. Let's see here. What are the other ones you guys want to look at? Let me cycle through some of my other names here. I'm trying to go off of memory what other names I was in. Talked Neo, and I will certainly get into your guys' list that you're posting there. I'm trying to think what were the other names that I wanted to show you guys before we got going. Oh, Dash. Dash is finally breaking out here. A little bit of a double bottom. And so some of these names haven't seen the massive move just yet, still moving nicely. And so I posted this one here yesterday while it was pre-breakouts and said, above that, here's the measured move, takes it up to that yellow line, which again really lines up very nicely with this prior resistance. And from the time I posted it, it's a nice little 15% move, right? Maybe 15% is too boring for this market, but hey, 15% is still 15%. The other one is Litecoin. Now, Litecoin dollar is very strong, breaking out here, but I was really liking Litecoin BTC It's had this big pullback, found some support here right around that 0.11 level. Hasn't broken that downtrend yet. I mean, just now starting to break it, and the volume is really kicking in here today, and so that's really good for Litecoin. I think this one's got a lot more to go, especially some front running into the halvening. Maybe we versus Bitcoin get back to that most recent high that we saw in early April. From here to there, that's about a 50% move, basically, similar to the other moves we just saw. So Litecoin is one from a BTC pair that hasn't had that monster rally just yet. So I'd be watching that one. If you're feeling the FOMO and you're not sure where to go, start looking at some of those that haven't had like that huge 40-50% move just yet. And looking at it from the dollar, right, just now breaking out over the highs. Really, the breakout point was down here around that 95, 96 level. Next target was around 110 for me. And then if we zoom out, let me go to the daily chart. Sorry about that. Let me fix this here. There we go. I'll put the log on here just to help neutralize the chart a little bit. Above this point, there's going to be some resistance on the way up as we head into this little bit of a window here. But if it really gets going, then you're looking at, mid 100s to 170s, right, for Litecoin. Between now and the halvening, that's absolutely realistic, maybe even higher than that. So that's what I'm looking at for Litecoin, especially now that it's broken out. Now, near term, with a lot of these names, guys, just keep in mind, right, I know the FOMO is strong, but near term, many of these are certainly feeling extended. Maybe not so much Litecoin here, but a lot of them are. So, just don't have to go 100% all in at the top. But just saying. Let's see here. What are some of these others that we're looking at here? So we did, 0x is another one here. Let me go through some of the names I posted yesterday in the group. I posted EOS, I posted 0x, Theta. Let's look at Theta. I was looking at Theta here just because I hit the radar from the alert system as far as setting up here. So yeah, Theta's already broken out. I was looking at this one yesterday. It came on the alerts and then had that nice volume spike, pulled right back in, and it said, hey, this one looks like it wants to break out. And sure enough, Theta's starting to really move through some resistance there over that 1360 level. So looking nice. Basically hitting that first target already at 1500, and then the next target up is going to be around 16 to 1650, and so that's what I'd be watching here. But Theta looks really good, starting to take out some resistance on the daily chart. I mean, it's just getting going on the daily chart. If you look at that moving average pair that's been in this long decline, haven't really even confirmed, to be honest, right? It's still below the 22 EMA. We've seen these moves before where they bounce into these moving averages, can't really get going, and then they roll over again. And so you're seeing some of that here, but the volume is certainly much stronger this time around than it was in some of those previous bounces. So looking at Theta, that looks pretty good there. EOS, I'm going to do EOS BTC and EOS dollar. And the pattern was just real similar for so many of these names. Look at this little double bottom. The thing I liked about the EOS double bottom was the second low undercut the first low, which is always nice because it kind of takes out some of the stops. And when you saw that happen, if you look at the RSI, if you look at the MACD histogram, notice that that low was nowhere near as low as the first low. And so that's a good definition of a bullish divergence, and like I said before, nothing's a guarantee, but it puts the odds in your favor that, hey, maybe that was the low, especially when the volume starts to come in. And then at that point, you can look to, for a breakout or something. If we do a measured move on this, takes it to the line there around 8,500. And then the next target I'm looking at above that is around 89.50 for EOS. Now, from the breakout to that point, that's 8% and 13%, right? Still good, but when I'm making my choices, when I'm deciding, okay, which one do I go after? Because you have to pick, right? You can't just go out and buy 100 of them. You have to decide which ones you look at. So for me, when I'm making those choices, I'm looking at what's the bigger potential, right? Risk reward perspective. So, if you're looking at it from an R multiple and you're saying, if I bought it here and I put my stop here, that's a 2.1 or it's a 4R multiple or whatever, right? You look at it from that perspective. And then I also look at it from the potential upside perspective, right? So like, as we saw in the case of Ripple and, Stellar and Cardano, right? The upside was well into the double digits, right? Potentially 20, 30, 40% moves. You know, when I'm looking at EOS, I'm going, okay, 10%, 15%. Now, it could certainly go higher, but that's just my approach is, okay, if I'm looking at 5 names, one's a 30%er, one's a 10, one's a 15, right? That's just the way I'm going to approach it is, you know, I'll look at which ones to go from there. So still looking good, though. Can't complain about EOS. If we look at it from the dollar, EOS dollar pair, it is approaching my next target here as it's already seen a nice little strong rally. It's already broken out from the trend line. Obviously, it's broken out horizontal price resistance now over that $6 mark. And so I'm going to really zoom out here. And my next target on EOS was basically where it's at right now, about 680. And then above that, about 930. And so that's, you know, that's a good 50% move from here, right? So look at, what's that, 40% from here to there. So those are the next levels to be watching on EOS. Still looking good, though. Can't complain. All right, let's catch up with some of these comments here. Go look at the BTC. So if you're just joining, the first thing we did was look at some Bitcoin. It looks like it's about to break out here, starting to edge out a little bit. Looked at some potential retracement targets on the downside, and then just really started to look at some of these alts. Man, some of these alts are on fire. There's just no other way to say it. They're just kicking butt finally, catching up, gaining ground again versus BTC, which was long overdue. What names am I looking at for entry? I've already mentioned a few. You know, BAT, picked that up today. Dash, maybe 0x, some of the other ones here. I'm just kind of cycling out of names that are strong when they get their moves. When I get the 20% or whatever, I just cycle out and go into something else, back into BTC until something breaks out. Let's see, Quantum, we'll do the deep dive on that. OMG. Icon, yeah, Icon's been a good one here too. You know, and it's been mostly the mid, you know, the top tier names, right? If you look at names like Binance, if you look at Litecoin, if you look at ETH, right? You know, obviously Ripple, that's really been where the initial move has taken place, right? Neo even getting some action there. Ontology has been very strong. Again, double bottom here, broke out from that a few days back and still moving. And now I'm starting to look at, okay, maybe we get some rotation to the next tier of names, right? You're seeing the ETH and the Ripples, the Stellars taking off, right? Stellar had a fabulous move here. So now you're going to potentially see some cycle, some rotation, right? You're seeing Zcash breaking out here today. Nice little break out of that downtrend. Didn't take this one, but, you know, like I said, you can't take them all. I did post this one in the Slack group as one of the names to look at. Yesterday, Zcash, 0x. We'll take a look at some of those. And so that's what I'm looking at next is what's that next cycle of names that are going to be breaking out here. Let's go to the watch list, see what's moving. Raven was popping here today. I'm going to only look at the BTC pairs. Sorry about your eyes there. We'll look at Tron, Verge. Oh, my God, Verge is still going. Icon, Ethereum Classic. I usually skip that one. Nano, Quantum, Walton, OMG, Manero, TNB, 0x, Link has already been moving, Dash, Zcash, Uzel, DLT. My goodness, the whole crypto sphere is on this list. Even Polymath, the crap coin Polymath is on this list. Good Lord. All right, so we'll go take a look at some of those names and see what else we got here. I'm going to keep going through some of the names. I'm, you know, cherry picking them, of course. Let's see. I'm not going to go through that entire list. You guys don't want me to do that. Yeah, let's do Tron, and then I'll come back to 0x here. So if we look at Tron BTC here, and some of my charts are already marked up because we did a private live stream a couple days ago, or maybe that was yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever that was. And so some of these charts are already marked up because we were looking at some of these support and resistance levels as potential areas to watch out. So Tron, of course, has a nice little breakout. The level to be watching was basically that 350 level on the BTC pair. Next target up is right where it was at now, this little resistance right there. And then above that, I'd be looking at 420. 420 for Tron. Now, the big picture, though, is still nice, right? If you look at the big picture, this is kind of just like that initial move off the lows. I mean, the daily chart is horrendous still for so many of these alts. I mean, just this has been an ugly move down versus Bitcoin, absolutely underperformed, just like Ripple, just like some of the others. And this is just kind of that initial move off the lows, right? Now, personally, what I'd like to see is a little bit of a pause, pullback on some of these names. So, for example, on Tron, let me zoom in here, right? Let's say it hits this resistance or even this one up here, decides to pull back over the next week or two. If it does a big double bottom on the daily chart, I mean, that is going to be such a bullish pattern at that point, because then at that point, it'll project, a much bigger move on the way up, right? Versus if it just, kind of keeps going. But, there's a couple of ways they play out. Sometimes they do V bottom, but there'll be pullbacks along the way for sure. That's just one thing to look at. The alternative is it pulls back, but it makes a higher low, and it just comes back to this prior breakout point, touches it, and then gets going again. So the daily charts are just like, they're just so early on in these moves. So many of them, they're just kind of getting started, right? Not all of them. Obviously, we saw Cardano, and we saw some of these other names that are already back to the April highs. But that's what I'd be looking at now. Tron dollar was kind of the early signal because that one was breaking out, but everything was breaking out versus dollar. This one's just getting going on the dollar here, passing that 3-cent mark. And so if you look at the big picture here on the daily chart, that's a good breakout of a long time resistance level, right? This was August back here, and this was January and February, and then the high in April, and getting above it. If it can start to hold above that 3 cents, that's going to look really good for kind of a longer term view. You can argue this is a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder, a little bit irregular, but nonetheless, the breakout's still solid there. $1 Tron, wouldn't that be something? I'm not going to hold out for $1 Tron. I don't know about that. Oh, let's see here. All right, let's go through some of the other names here. So Tron, some of the other names we haven't looked at. Let me do 0x before I forget, because 0x is on my radar. I'm liking 0x here. Had that nice move, pushing above the 10 EMA on the daily, back to the 22. That's kind of usually my first target. When I'm doing the quick trades, right, if I'm looking at that, usually a retracement into the moving averages is what I look for, and it's basically hit that. Now, if it continues higher, then you start looking for these prior swing highs as resistance levels, right? So that's what I'm looking at. And then the big one, of course, is this resistance back here, which is about 6,100 on 0x. That'd be the first major target that I'd be watching here. From here up, that'd be another 35% or so. And so see if we can get it. Volume today, or now yesterday, we rolled over to a new candle, but the volume is very strong, right? Very well above average, very compelling. And so many of these names have that volume, right, versus Bitcoin. And you're starting to see that rotation, right? You're starting to see a little bit of rotation back into the alts. The volume there is starting to confirm it. We saw a little hint of that last weekend, and I thought maybe that was the low, right? It looked like a lot of the alts were ready to get going over the weekend. And we started to see them pop, and the volume was there. They quickly reversed, but then, here today, yesterday, they're really coming back and taking out some of those levels. And at this point now confirming that, right? So nice little reversals on so many of these names. Let me see here. What were the other ones? How can you pick my brains? What are you, a zombie? I'm just kidding. Let's see here. Steam. Wow, there's a name from yesteryear. It is dinner time. You're absolutely correct. It's 6:06. Oh my goodness. It's dinner time. I've had a long day. I generally get up early my day to start with the markets, the stock markets, which open at my 6:30 a.m., which means, I got to be ready to go and watch lists and plans ready to go by 5:45 a.m., which means I got to get up earlier than that. So, caffeine is my friend. And I skipped the gym today because I said, I'm just going to do a live stream. Let's just do a live stream. That's much better, right? All right, BTC still edging higher. Let's take a look at some of these other names here. So Ontology, one I'm liking here, I'm liking more from the long-term perspective. Again, did have that breakout on the double bottom already, hitting a little bit of resistance here, which is the level I really wanted to see clear on the live stream. We talked about this 1900 level. This, getting above that would be really good for Ontology. Let me zoom out here. It just has been a level in recent past. Right here in December was support. It broke down, rallied, couldn't get above, kind of lived below it for a while, came right back in February, finally broke out and had a nice little run, and then just fully retraced. And we saw that level serve as a very short-term support level. It bounced and then it finally gave way, and just now here today finally getting back above that. Now I'd like to see it hold. We'll see if it does, but this is something to be keeping an eye on. If it starts to live above that 1900 level versus Bitcoin, then that could really kick off the start of the next leg up on Ontology. Ontology dollar, look at that guy here, right? Still very strong, and the early signal on this was a break of the downtrend, right? So that was back here, and it happened on some very strong volume. So if we look at that, let's zoom in on Ontology, and it's basically right back at the April highs, just like we've seen on so many of these other names, right? Cardano, Stellar, they're just coming right back to that April swing high. It'll be interesting to see if they pull back from here or if they just decide to keep going. But, Ontology, if you look at the volume on the day, broke the downtrend line, very strong volume, kind of just confirmed it, and very quickly went up, 40%? Not too shabby. Not too shabby, 40% in 5 days. So that's what I'd be watching there on Ontology. It'd be interesting to see if these guys start to pause here and do a little bit of a pullback, because at that point you'd start to see some nice cup and handles starting to form here. If you started to see like a little bit of a rally and then maybe a pause for a few days or a week even on lower volume, and then if it starts to push over those resistance levels, that would be really nice to see. Cardano, I know we already looked at that, but I'm guessing that's going to be a similar setup, right? If you start to see those type of little handles form, that'll be a little bit of a secondary entry point for many of those names. Let's see here. Where do you see Litecoins by August? I'm going to call it 175. That's just me throwing a number out. Litecoin by August. Oh man, 175. I'm selling it short. I'm selling it short. Yeah, that's a good number. 175. Let's call August Litecoin 175. Maybe more, right? Maybe 270. The staunches of Litecoin bulls will be saying 300. I got a buddy who's like loading up, and I mean loading up on Litecoin in the 20s. He's doing pretty good. He's doing pretty good. Let's see here. What else we got? I'll do a few more names here and get going. All right. Let me see here. Smash the likes, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just scrolling through the comments here. Sorry, guys. Radio silence. All right, so we covered quite a few names very quickly here. Dash, BAT, most of the majors, EOS, NEO, Ontology, Litecoin, ETH, Ripple, Lumens. What else here? So this is BAT. This is Bitcoin Cash, BTC. We don't even have to say this is the ABC version, right? Because nobody cares about Bitcoin Cash SV. That's pretty much dead. So Bitcoin Cash Classic. So Bitcoin Cash Classic, the level I'm watching here is versus Bitcoin, right? It's been setting up here, and maybe forming a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder pattern here just below this resistance. Getting above that 0.052 is really the level that I'm watching. Not doing anything with it until it does that. If we zoom in here, looking at the 4-hour view, let's zoom in a little bit here. This is what I'm watching, right? And as we've seen it before, I mean, this guy can just really take off once he gets going. So if he can get going above that, that's the level to be watching here. You know, you can make an argument for, hey, this was a little bit of a maybe an inverse head and shoulder. I mean, it's not a clean one, but nonetheless, the breakout point's the same, right? Getting above that horizontal price point would be bullish. And at that point, I'd be looking at the April highs as your first target on a run to the way up, right? So from here to there, let's see how much of a move would that be if it breaks out. For those of you looking for pre-breakout names, if it breaks out, you know, that's about a 21% move to the recent swing high. Let's go look at it from the USD side, because I'm looking at 400 as kind of like the level, right? So it's already at 400 from the USD pair. It's kind of hit that first target I was looking at. So if it can get going, then you're looking at 500s next on this guy, but it's kind of at a resistance point, both on the dollar and the BTC side. Interesting there. Bitcoin Cash will be, or Bitcoin will be 10K by this weekend's end. Yeah, we'll see. You know, a week ago I would have said you were crazy. Now it's like, you know, who knows? Who knows? XTZ, yeah, XTZ's had a nice day. I'm going to look at it from the BTC pair, because that's mostly how I'm looking at most of these pairs anyway right now. So yeah, I mean, nice little rally. You know, it's kind of hitting a little bit of a target zone here, but nice little rally here ahead today. Yeah, Matic was up. That's a small cap name. Matic was like a $17 million market cap name. Like, I don't know. You know, it doesn't take much for a $17 million cap name to move 100%, 200%. There's a million of those names out there. Just take your pick. Remember all the YouTube guys were talking about names like Neblio and stuff like that, and they're just like micro cap now, right? They're in the dumps. So they'll have their day. They'll have their day in the sun again. Let's look at VeChain. VeChain. Looking at VeChain here. Not quite as strong as some of these others. It did break below this long time support, getting right back above it. And for me, I'm going to wait for it to get above that. Right. This one just looks a little bit weaker than the others. If it can push through and get back over that 105 level or so, then I'd be interested in this one again. And you know, it's certainly trying. Then at that point, right, another run to the resistance level. So that's what I'm looking at on VeChain. Let me go through Potcoin. Name from yesteryear. Man, I was watching some of these names like rally, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that name. Let me see. So we covered Bitcoin, ETH, EOS, Dash. We haven't looked at BNB. I'll look at that in on some of you guys are asking. Monero's pretty much hitting my targets, just still going. And once it broke out over that $72 level, that was really it. Manero was really more of a, from the USD pair, I was liking it. From the BTC side, it wasn't quite as clear, but you know, nonetheless, nice little move here off the lows. The BTC, the dollar pair was really the signal for me on that guy, but nonetheless, very good move on Manero. Manero, my favorite privacy coin, by the way. And yes, I saw the news. Yes, I know. Let's see what else. Zill and Pepsi, nice. Icon, looking at Icon, moving up very nicely here over that 36-cent mark here today. Next target is basically 44 to 46 cents. Then above that, 54 cents is kind of the big target that I'm looking at on the way up if it continues to rally here on the dollar pair. So Icon, very nice move on Icon. Still has room to go on the technicals. How's it look on the BTC side? ICX, BTC, still below Some long time resistance. That's what I'm saying. If you look at the daily charts on some of these, I mean, they're just getting started. I mean, these moves are, they're not even bullish looking yet. They're still looking ugly. Oh man. Let's see here. So we covered Tron, Cardano, Bats. Let's look at Engine. Engine, not quite to moving just yet. Neo, bouncing into the 22 EMA. Stellar, we already looked at that one. I banked Stellar here just before the live stream. QKC, covered Theta. IOTA has been on a tear. That little move on IOTA already. The question is, what hasn't been on tear, right? So there you go. All right, let's go through some of this here real quick, and then we'll start to wrap it up. Dent, oh man, yeah. If Dent starts to rally, I'm gonna get scared. Steam on the move. Oversold long term 6 days ago, on the move here today. Nice. Litecoin, S&T. There's a name from yesteryear. GRS. Let's see, Dash, Neo, Raven. We looked at most of these already. I'll take a look at Steam. I know somebody was asking for Steam. Steam. Pretty much the same pattern everything's doing right now. I mean, nice little reversal off the lows, good volume. And on all of these, right, the way I'm looking at them is, you know, you see that resistance level on the way down, the lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. When it starts to take out that resistance, that previous swing high, and starts to hold above it like it did right here, you know, that's kind of my signal. If you're not wanting to buy the front side, if you're waiting for some confirmation, right, that's the way I look at it, is starting to hold above resistance on the 4 hours, starting to get back above moving averages. Now you're seeing a bullish crossover on these moving average pairs, right? So it's just kind of ticking all the boxes. Very nice reversals. So looking pretty good there. But that's, I mean, a lot of them are that, right? That's kind of that's where we're at today. Oops. There we go. AGI hasn't quite broken out. Nice. So this is one to look at. And a lot of these smaller mid-cap names, I think, are the next ones to run. Right now you're seeing most of the big cap names running first. So yeah, I'd be watching this guy again. Similar approach, about 600 to 610 is probably the breakout level. And then above that, of course, if volume really starts to kick in, looks good from there. All right, I'm going to start going a little bit quicker here. So looking at Link, it's been a little bit choppy. Look at Link, man. Link was a little bit of a stop hunt, right? Had that nice run, pulled back, quick spike lower, and then just quick volume spike higher. Just tough one here. I've already marked this one out just because we were looking at this one on the stream here the other day. So if we can get above that, you know, 10.9, then I'm looking at 13,000 as kind of the next target on Link on the way up. ARK, yeah, ARK was moving. ARK, let's see here. Is ARK moving? Not quite breaking out yet. Another pre-breakout name. And smaller mid-cap names haven't quite had the move yet. It's mostly been a lot of the large cap names. But looking at ARK, above 820 is really the level I'd like to see it. 810 to 820. Getting above that. ARK's usually a little bit too liquid for me. I don't really like the way it trades, but you know, can't argue on that. AGI targets. Oops. Let's go back to Binance here. So the way I just use the resistance levels, the very clear, I mean, these are very clear, right? You had 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts at the same level. Generally, that's my first target. So in this case, basically 760. Then above that, the prior support that gave way is often resistance. And so in this case, it's about 850. And then the prior swing high is around 950, right? So some pretty easy round numbers to look at for AGI if it continues higher. Oh, yeah. Yep. We're eating steaks tonight. No ramens for me. The bear market's over. I'm done. I'm throwing all my ramen packs away. You know, I was buying ramens by the caseload in December. You just never know. I'm throwing away my ramen's jumpsuit. I'm throwing away my ramen's baseball cap. Oh, what's this guy? Engine. We already looked at engine here. Oh, man. Aeon. Let's go look at some of these others real quick here. I'm going to call it a day, and I'm going to get some dinner. Aeon. So here's the question for you guys, and this is always the tough question, right? So think about this one. If you had to buy just one coin and hold it for 6 months, right? So basically you had to buy something today and you had to hold it until December, what would your one coin be? So let me see here. So looking at Aeon, I mean, it's bouncing right into this resistance here. It's looking pretty good. You could argue there's a nice little double bottom, you know, a little bit irregular, but definitely got the signature there, little double bottom. Early breakout point on this guy is basically 300, which is right there. If it starts to close above that, you know, you got a little resistance there, but I'd be looking at Aeon. Let's see here. Let's do a measured move on this guy. From here to 300, let's project that out. And it's almost a perfect measured move to 360, which is your prior resistance there on the double bottom. So that kind of be your, you know, from a trade, right? A quick trade, that's your target on the way up. And, you know, that's, what is that? From here up, it's about a 20%er, right? Not too shabby. And then, of course, anything above that, you can see some more upside from there. So there's Aeon. Facebook coin. Yikes. Yeah, that's a good, you know, BTC, a lot of people would say that if they had to just hold just one, what would it be, BTC? And I should have guessed that. I should have prefaced by saying which altcoin, because that's really what I meant. I mean, if you pressed me and said, what one coin will you hold? I mean, it would be BTC, hands down. But from an altcoin perspective, right, what would be the alternative there for you guys? So let's see what everyone is saying. Everyone's saying ETH, BTC, EOS, ETH, VeChain Dash, Walton, Stellar, BNB or Litecoin. Yeah, I can see that. BNB. Certainly Litecoin, but if I had to hold it till December, I probably wouldn't pick Litecoin just because who knows what happens after the halvening on Litecoin. Maybe it cycles back into Bitcoin for the Bitcoin halvening. Cardano. Interesting. Litecoin. Substratum. Yeesh. Saya. No. Really? BNB. COLX. I don't even know what that is. Mana. Mana's a good one. I like Mana. Aeon. Yeah. So, I mean, just kind of quickly looking at the comments, right? If we had to kind of get a group consensus, most people would probably go with the top tier names. They'd be ETH, Litecoin, Binance, maybe EOS, and obviously Bitcoin. No Ripple? Come on. Doge. Oh man, no joke. So yesterday I was posting on the Slack group about, you know, just the comments I was reading on some of these other channels, and people are like, "Oh, how do I buy crypto and how do I start trading and investing it?" And people were posting. I mean, there was an unusual amount of people posting about Doge and buy Doge. It's the next best thing since sliced bread. And I was laughing. I'm like, really? And then so I go to StockTwits, and what's trending last night? Doge. I was laughing. I took a screenshot. I was like, guys, look at this. So if you look at the StockTwits, right? I use this a lot for the day trading, right? Doge is right here, right? Doge is still trending on StockTwits. I'm like, all right. It truly is alt season. Oh, good times. Yeah, I know you guys are kidding. Tether. Tether apparently is a great investment. Didn't even drop during the bear market. Burge. Lumens or Raven? Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. We looked at the Raven chart, didn't we? It's just now coming off the lows here. If you look at the daily chart, you get how many names are bumping right in that 22 EMA and starting to pull back. It's interesting. It's usually my first target on those bounces. Raven, yeah, Raven had quite the move too. I mean, it was just the monster mover here earlier this year. Alter like Steve. You guys are great. All right, so what else are we going to look at here? I think we covered the most. Let's go back to BTC here, see what's going on. You know, would I buy Bitcoin here now if I didn't have it? I mean, it's hard to say where the pullback's going to land. Could it go to 9K this weekend? Maybe. I'm just more interested in the alts at this point, just because they've got crushed versus Bitcoin. And I mean, look at something like ETH, right? It was just in nowhere land, and then 3 days just takes out the prior 2 weeks worth of bearish action. I mean, that's what you like to see. Look at where it's gone, right? Takes out 21 days of red bars very quickly. And that's usually, you know, when they hit a solid low. We've seen that in the past, right? When Bitcoin's rallying and the alts are getting crushed, eventually the alts find bottom before Bitcoin does find a near-term top. And the rallies are usually fast and furious. You know, they move pretty quick. The other thing with ETH here, if we look at the long-term picture on ETH BTC, I'm going to go to Coinbase. I mean, it's sitting on some long time support. It was like, it better bounce here, because if it doesn't, not going to be pretty. But you can see here, right, on ETH, you know, this is the weekly chart of ETH. Let me narrow this out here a little bit. But if you look at, you know, this prior base, that was 2016, right? And then, of course, the big breakout that we saw in March of 2017, when it had that big pullback in December of 2017. Again, this was, you know, BTC killing everybody because dominating, but then they finally bounced. And then last year, September and November, right, was that same level of support. And here we are again testing that, and we were finally, you know, bouncing off that. But it was, you know, it was looking real interesting here. Even just last week, I was thinking, ETH better bounce here. It's not going to be pretty. And yes, like a crazy, I took some ETH, sold some Bitcoin for ETH. What was I thinking? Who does that? Oh, man. All right, guys. When more educational material, you know, I haven't put anything out since probably February was probably the last of it. I don't know if you're aware, I'm sure you are, but if you're not, there is a new video course that I put out with a ton of videos. I mean, I think total library is like maybe 13 hours worth of video. And it's broken out into a couple of sections. So if you're not familiar with this, then this is probably what you're asking for. The last time I did a course was in 2017. I put this together here at the start of this year during the bear market, took advantage of a little bit of a slower season, and just really cranked this guy out. It took a long time, but it was definitely worth it. I think I started it like in September, October, and finished it up in January. So it's risk management. It's a lot of technical analysis, indicator stuff, right? RSI, MACD, moving averages, support resistance, Fibonacci, you know, how I use them. I mean, there's no one size fits all when it comes to trading and investing. A lot of people have different strategies, different approaches, different risk tolerance. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And there's no right or wrong, right? What may work for me may not be the right thing for someone else, and vice versa. So this is just kind of my videos of how I approach things, right? And then some strategies, some patterns, how to trade them, you know, the 4-step approach that I've developed, all that good stuff. So if you're not familiar with that, I would check that out. You can buy that directly through nodeinvestor.com, or if you're a subscriber to the Node Insiders alerts, then you get access to all the videos as part of that. So, and for those of you that have taken it, appreciate all the feedback and the comments. You know, I'm still I'm still going to put some more together. I just haven't for a couple of months, but I'll be adding to it as needed. All right, let's see what else is popping on the alerts, and then we'll call it a day. Call it a night. 6:30 my time. I better get going. So we saw, did we look at OMG? I don't think we did. OMG, ZIL just came through across the alerts. We already saw 0x, OCN. All right, we'll look at those two. I'll look at ZIL and OMG, and then I will call it a day. So let's go OMG, BTC. Clear some of this other stuff here first. I'm going to go to the 4-hour view. Sorry, I'm on the weekly chart there. Nice little move in OMG here. You know, again, solid break of that downtrend. Would have liked to see more volume on that breakout bar, but you know, the volume's starting to kick in now. Can't complain there. I'm betting there's a bullish divergence here if you look at the downtrend that was in place right here, right? The lower lows. Let's go see the RSI, see what that looks like. And yeah, you could, you know, there was a little bit of a divergence starting to show up, signaling a potential low coming. Right, you can see that happening there. Every low was met with a higher low on the RSI, as well as the MACD histograms. And so you're starting to see that. And those are generally, you know, the telltale signs of, hey, start paying attention. Not necessarily a buy signal in and of itself, but it's generally a good good flag to start noticing, right? So OMG, so on the way up now, though, now that it's had this little bit of a rally, you know, it's kind of bouncing into this little bit of a resistance level right here. And then above that, I'd be looking at 310 for your next target on the way up, and then 364. Now, OMG, it's funny you mentioned that because I was looking at this one yesterday. You know, when you think about that question I asked, what would you hold for a year or 6 months or whatever? I was looking at OMG yesterday, and I was thinking, this thing's, you know, at least yesterday it was, right? I was like, this thing is still sub $2. Like, what are the chances of OMG going to $4 in the next 6 months? And I was thinking, you know, that's not very far-fetched, right? OMG, if you look at the long-term view of this guy, let's go to a different exchange, something like Bitfinex. OMG is like way down from the highs. Where's OMG dollar? All right. Daily view. Here we go. I'll fix it. Hold on. You know, if you look at the bigger picture, right, here's $4 right here, but it's just like barely even a retracement. Obviously, it peaked way up here in the, you know, the teens, approaching that $20 mark. But, you know, a little bounce even is a significant percentage move in so many of these alts that have just been crushed here in the bear market, right? If you go back even to the November levels, that's only 40, you know, that's a 40% move. If you go back to the big resistance level around $6, right, that's 167% move. You know, but the big question is, you know, is there going to be enough of a catalyst for some of these names to really rally that strongly? Or are some of these projects just kind of like going by the wayside, right? And some of them, that is the case, right? Maybe development's slowing down or stopped. And so that's where the fundamental picture starts to really play a part, where you start looking at, you know, who's going to continue to make progress, you know, in 2019 and 2020. And those are potentially names that are going to be, you know, coming back strong. BCH, is it finally going? Let's see here. BCH. BCH heard me talking smack about it. You guys are like, oh, he doesn't like BCH. Go buy it. Yeah, there's that level I was talking about starting to break through, and some good volume coming into. This current candle, which is a 4-hour candle on my chart, is not even halfway over yet. So good. Good stuff, Ming. All right. And last but not least, ZIL. So looking at ZIL here. Nice little downtrend break, finally. You see dent? I don't want to look at dent. No, please no. Oh. Yeah, so Zill's looking nice. It's finally cleared some horizontal price resistance here around that 242 level, 240. So that's a good target there. And then, of course, your resistance 270. And then kind of a real bigger target here is probably around that 311 mark. And so on Zill, from here up to that point, right, it's about 12 to 20% on the way up there if it gets going. I want to keep an eye on this one. You know, I'd like to see some of these names give you a little bit of a throwback to that resistance and then get going. Just makes for a little bit of a tighter entry, just, you know, from a risk reward perspective. Set a little bit of a tighter stop, which means I can take a little bit bigger of a position. So that's usually what I like to look for there. So, okay, my friends, hey, thanks for being here as always. I appreciate you guys. I love the comments. I love the discussion here. I'm starting to lose my voice. So I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to get some dinner. I'm going to relax, maybe take some time away from the screens here for a few hours at least, and be back to it tomorrow. So I hope you all have a good rest of your day, good rest of your evening, wherever you are. Until next time, take care, everyone.